Forbidden types of clothing. 1. Clothing that reveals the private parts. Muslims are required to cover their private parts with appropriate clothing. As the Quran states, "Children of Adam, we have sent down clothing to you to conceal your private parts." Surat Al-Araf 7:26. Islam has fixed the standards of modesty for both men and women. For men, the minimum amount to be covered is between the navel and the knee. For women who are in the presence of men not related to them, they must cover their bodies except for their face and hands. Islam requires that clothing must also be loose enough to cover the body properly. Therefore, skin-tight and see-through clothes are not allowed in Islam. In fact, the Prophet warned those people who did not observe modesty in dress, calling them types among the people of hellfire, one of them being women who are clothed yet naked. 2. Clothing that involves dressing like or imitating the opposite sex. This type of clothing is strictly forbidden in Islam, and wearing it is considered one of the major sins. This imitation may be extended to include imitation in the manner of speaking, gait, and movement, for Allah's Messenger cursed men who wear women's clothes and women who wear men's clothes. Sunan Abu Dawud 4098. He also cursed men who make themselves look like women and women who make themselves look like men. Sahih al-Bukhari 5546. By directing men and women to observe different modes of dress, Islam takes into account the biological differences between them and encourages them to act in accordance with the dictates of sound reason and the pure inner nature innate in all humans, fitrah. 3. Clothing that involves imitation of the dress traditionally worn by non-Muslims, such as the type of clothing worn by monks and priests and wearing a cross. This also includes clothing that is specific to a certain religion, for the Prophet said, "Whoever imitates a people is one of them." Sunan Abu Dawud 4031. This imitation extends to wearing clothing of religious significance. Imitation of this type is a sign of weakness and lack of confidence in the truth one adopts. Imitation here does not include wearing clothing that is predominant in one's country, even if such dress is worn by the majority of non-Muslims. For the Prophet used to wear clothing that was common amongst the Quraysh pagans, with the exception of those clothing items that are expressly forbidden. 5. Clothing that is worn with pride and conceit. The Prophet said, "No one who has an atom's weight of pride in his heart will enter paradise." Sahih Muslim 91. It is for this reason that Islam warns against trailing one's lower garments on the ground out of pride. The Prophet said, "On the day of resurrection, Allah will not even look at those who drag their garments on the ground out of pride." Sahih al-Bukhari 3465, Sahih Muslim 2085. Islam also warns against wearing the so-called libas ash-shura, flamboyant, flashy clothing. In fact, this term refers to a number of things, including any type of weird clothing which has certain qualities that attract the attention of the general public, making its wearer known for it. Notorious clothing, due to its type or loud and repulsive color, and any type of clothing that makes its wearer an object of pride and fame, attracting too much attention to himself. The Prophet said, "Whoever wears clothes of shuhra in this world, Allah will make him wear clothes of humiliation on the Day of Judgment." Musnad Ahmad 5664, Sunan Ibn Majah 3607. 5. Silk clothing, or clothing adorned with gold or silk for men. Referring to gold and silk once, the Prophet said, "These are forbidden for men among my followers, but permissible for women." Sunan Ibn Majah 3595, Sunan Abu Dawud 4057. By silk is meant pure silk, obtained from the cocoon of the silkworm. 6. Extravagant clothing. The Prophet once said, "Eat, give charity, and wear clothes. Let no extravagance or pride be mixed with what you do." Sunan an-Nasa'i 2559. The manner of dressing, however, varies from one person to another, depending on one's social position. If a person is rich, he may purchase clothing that a poor person cannot afford, given his monthly outcome, economic position, and other financial obligations he has to fulfill. While a piece of clothing may be considered a form of extravagance for a poor person, it may not be considered as such for a rich person.